She let a stranger and her son stay the night. Little did she know he was an amazing millionaire. Emily stood in her small kitchen, the remnants of another long shift as a nurse weighing heavily on her shoulders. The rain drummed against the windows, a reminder of the storm raging outside and inside her heart. Bills littered the counter, each envelope a dagger of anxiety. Sam's laughter echoed from his room, a sweet sound that faded into her guilt. She wanted to provide him the world, but all she had was this crippling loneliness and an empty fridge. Her days seemed endless, her hopes dwindling with each overdue notice. As she wrestled with her budget at the grocery store, every price tag felt like a personal insult. She hesitated over a pack of chicken, calculating the last few dollars in her pocket. Just then, a flash of red caught her attention outside a car, pulled over, hazard lights flickering like a distressed heartbeat. A quick decision nudged her forward. Perhaps she could be more than a mother and nurse for a moment, she could be a helper. Pulling over, she squinted through the rain. Jack looked like a drowned rat, his child shivering beside him. They were drenched, eyes wide with need. Emily's heart twisted. Did she have the room? Did she have the energy to shoulder this burden? Yet there they stood helpless, and something called out in her. Come on. You can stay with us until the storm passes. As they settled in for dinner, sharing stories over a modest meal, a connection sparked. Jack spoke of startups, of dreams built and shattered. Emily shared her daily battles, each bruise from life's harsh lessons evident in the way she held herself. Across the table, they laid bare their vulnerabilities, like two soldiers in a war of survival, but as the rain lulled into a soft patter, tension clung like smoke in the air. Jack received an email, and Emily watched his expression morph from disbelief to barely contained joy. Wealth could easily slip through his fingers again, but the prospect of a comeback dangled before him like a promise. She sensed the weight of his unspoken truths hovering between them. What layers of identity lay hidden? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily's heart raced, caught in a tumult of emotions. Jack, who could he truly be? A potential friend, or a man carrying secrets too heavy for their newfound bond? The possibilities twisted in her mind, wreaking havoc on her already fragile state. And as her hope sparked, a shadow of fear loomed over that flicker. What if he left? What would that mean for her, for Sam? Did she dare to dream beyond the confines of her scarcity? The air around them thickened, a silent acknowledgement of uncharted territories ahead. Jack looked like he was teetering on the edge of something monumental, and just when she felt herself leaning in, willing to embrace this unexpected twist in her life, he hesitated. He held the weight of two destinies, and their fates hung in the balance. Would he reveal all the true man behind the wet clothes and soulful eyes? Knowing that truth could forever alter the fragile world they knitted together, Emily felt an irrevocable shift inside her. The air crackled with uncertainty, and the moment stretched, as heavy and electric as the storm outside. As the silence wrapped around them, Emily held her breath, glancing at Jack's face. It was in those moments when the world felt suspended that clarity often struck. The storm outside was beginning to shift, albeit faintly. The raindrops lessened, trickling down the window like the weight on her chest. Jack's hand hovered above his phone, reminders of pressing notifications blinking at him, but instead, he looked up, his expression a mixture of uncertainty and determination. He started, his voice carrying a hint of vulnerability. She felt her pulse quicken. Perhaps this would be the moment when their realities collided, an intersection that might alter the path she was treading. Are you okay? Emily asked, her voice steady despite the turbulence in her gut. The question seemed simple, yet it lingered in the air, heavy with implications. Jack met her gaze, and for a heartbeat, she thought he might dive deep, but then he pulled back, his eyes shadowed with the burdens he bore. I just received a rare opportunity, something I didn't expect. A chance to restart my investments. Her heart sank slightly. Was he telling her this as an invitation to support him in whatever venture lay ahead, or as a confession of the life he led beyond the rain-soaked facade? Each word he spoke felt like a thread, tugging at the fabric of her own reality. Her mind swirled with calculations of what it could mean for them both. Could he really sweep her and Sam into something different, something more substantial than this small-town existence? What are you thinking? She pushed the question out, forcing herself to probe despite her trepidation. Jack's lips twitched into a half-smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. I'm thinking about taking a risk, but he hesitated again, and she could almost see him weighing the implications of sharing the next part. I can't do it alone this time. Not again. His admission struck a chord, resonant and raw. Emily knew about solitude, about standing alone when the shadows crept in. It mirrored her own struggle, a single mother fighting to keep her world together. But you're not alone, she responded, an unexpected warmth flooding her voice. You have a chance to build something good. There are people who care. I wish I had a strong support system, like you, he said, leaning forward intently. Their eyes locked, the air igniting with potential. For all the burdens he carried, perhaps she could be the lifeline he sought. In that moment, her chest tightened with the weight of her own choices. What was she truly willing to give? Would she step beyond her fears, expanding her boundaries from the nurse who clung to routine? Together, could they forge paths instead of standing in stagnant water? Jack cleared his throat, something tangible shifting in him. What if we exchanged ideas? Maybe, collaborate? You might have insights from your nursing that could lead to something bigger. Emily blinked, suddenly aware of her own assumptions. She was smart, creative, capable of solutions that went beyond the mundane. The flicker of a dream ignited in her mind. The possibility felt like a spark igniting dry tinder. This could be my chance too, she thought. A way to break free. As the rain lightened, a sliver of moonlight penetrated through the windows, illuminating the room with a soft glow. The moment became charged again. What if this is the push we both need? Emily dared to suggest, feeling the prospect growing within her. Jack's face brightened, the shadows receding from his features. Then we'll take this leap together. At that moment, she realized that both of them carried dreams long buried beneath their struggles. Here, in that modest kitchen, their aspirations flickered like candles against the night, fighting for life, but even as hope intertwined with fear, another thought gnawed at her, a haunting realization: the road ahead wouldn't be easy, and the revelation that lay hidden in Jack's story might hold surprising consequences. Would their alliance withstand challenges, especially if more secrets emerged? Emily felt a pull deep within her, a call to action she could no longer ignore. The dawn of change loomed closer, but so did the shadows waiting to emerge from the past. Would they confront their demons or retreat into the safety of familiarity? The morning after their conversation bloomed with a hesitant brightness, sunlight streaming through the window and spilling into Emily's modest kitchen. Yet, even as the day unfurled, the uncertainty from the previous night hovered around her like a palpable mist. It wasn't just the whisper of Jack's proposed partnership that lingered, it was the unsettling notion of her own aspirations awakening. Emily busied herself with her routine, the familiar dance of coffee-making and breakfast preparations. But where there was once comfort in these activities now resided a burgeoning restlessness. Was it time to stop existing in the shadow of her circumstances? To challenge the notion that a single mother could only navigate a narrow path? The idea of collaborating with Jack sparked a new current within her, a flicker of ambition she had long suppressed. As she sliced fruit, her mind flickered to the hospital, her patients, and the insights she had gleaned over the years. The system they navigated was often broken, bureaucracy eclipsed empathy, stifling creativity at every turn. What if her experiences could shape a new approach, perhaps even channeling them into viable solutions alongside Jack's business acumen? The thought was exhilarating, yet equally daunting. She envisioned all the ways it could fail, her self-doubt seeping in steadily. What if she put herself out there and didn't measure up? The voice of insecurity raised its head again. She paused, the knife frozen on the cutting board. But then, she remembered Jack's words, the way he had reached out for her support, the potential he saw in their mutual talents. If she could just step beyond that threshold of fear, what could they create together? The image of them not just surviving, but thriving, gaining traction with ideas that resonated, invoked a glimmer of hope amidst the tempest of emulation. After breakfast, with Sam happily engaged in his favorite cartoons, Emily embraced a practical resolve. She pulled out a notebook, the pages blank and untouched, waiting for fresh thoughts to fill them. She began to jot down ideas, lists of potential concepts drawn from her daily experiences at the hospital, ways to redefine patient care, innovative approaches to involve families, interventions that considered the whole person, not just their ailments. The words poured out almost as a stream of consciousness. Ideas flowed freely. This was liberation. She noted everything, allowing her imagination to take flight while her heart raced. Each scribble was a mini victory, a testament to her emerging understanding that she was more than her role as a nurse. She was a thinker, a doer, capable of shaping change in a world desperately in need of it. But in the midst of her creative bursts, a different anxiety began inching closer. Could she truly count on Jack? Memories of his own vulnerabilities came flooding back, the weight he carried and the unspoken fears lurking beneath his optimism. Could they support each other's dreams without falling into the same patterns of doubt and reliance they were so desperate to escape? Just as she was deep in thought, the phone rang, a sharp intrusion that sent her thoughts scattering. The screen illuminated with Jack's name. Tentatively, she swiped to answer, her stomach twisting with uncertainty. "Emily, I'm glad I caught you," he greeted, his voice steady but laced with an edge of urgency. "I've been thinking about our conversation, and I have a few ideas I'd like to share. But it's also important that we talk about the past. There are things you need to know." Her breath caught in her throat. The shadows of the night before crept closer, morphing into something undeniably real. Would this conversation be a detour or the very bridge to the partnership she envisioned? As anticipation battled apprehension in her heart, she steeled herself for the revelations to come. "Okay," she managed to say as an uncertain resolve bubbled to the surface. "Let us talk." In that instant, she realized that the journey ahead would require facing their collective baggage. With delicate maneuvering, they would have to traverse the fragile line between fear and passion, honesty and guardedness. The potential for growth lay in those very shadows. What lay hidden in Jack's past awaited like a storm rolling in, and she felt the first tremors of change signaling that this wasn't just a leap into collaboration, but into something much deeper. Would they confront their fears, or would the unforeseen complexities pull them apart? Emily held her breath as Jack's voice carried over the line, laced with urgency and an uncharacteristic heaviness. "Emily, I know this isn't easy, and I want to be honest with you. There is something about my past I think it's time you knew." With her heart racing, she steadied herself. The room felt smaller, echoes of her ambitions fluttered silently around her. This conversation was no longer just about future plans, it was a confrontation with unspoken truths. Jack's past could either bind them closer or drive a wedge between their burgeoning partnership. "Okay," she said, her voice steadying itself despite the turmoil inside. "What do you need to tell me?" Jack took a breath that seemed to stretch into eternity before he began. His words flowed like a confession, revealing layers of his past decisions made in desperation, failures that still haunted him, and dreams that had both been realized and dashed. Each revelation mirrored the shadows of her own insecurities, threading a complex tapestry of shared fears and unfulfilled desires between them. As he spoke, Emily felt herself oscillate between compassion and caution. Jack's journey bore the weight of experience. She found herself developing a profound empathy for the man behind the confident exterior. Yet, she couldn't help but wonder how this might shift their partnership. Could they rise above their pasts or would they fall prey to them? When he finally concluded, silence hung heavily in the air. What had started as a beacon of hope transformed under the weight of vulnerability. Could they really step forward into a shared ambition, knowing the histories each carried? "Thank you for sharing that with me," Emily finally said, her voice a whisper against the overwhelming backdrop of her chaos. It's a lot to take in, but it's important we trust each other completely. This statement, while laced with resolve, felt like an invitation to confront her own vulnerabilities as much as his. Jack's response, a soft, almost hesitant "I agree," echoed her own uncertainty. The depth of their conversation weighed on her, pushing Emily to a realization: to build a partnership and new future, she needed to shed the limitations of her past. Was she willing to risk the familiar safety of her routine for the possibility of change, anchored by someone equally flawed yet hopeful? In the days that followed their conversation, distinct possibilities unfolded in her mind. They could forge innovative paths together, but it would require her to challenge both his and her preconceived notions of who they were versus who they could be. Emily began committing to both a personal and professional exploration, envisioning how they could tackle the issues she had outlined in her notebook, pushing through the discomfort that had once shackled her. Unearthing her ambition felt like gathering pieces of a shattered mirror. Each insight reflected a fragmented version of herself, the nurse, the mother, and now, the potential innovator. Yet, glimpses of doubt taunted her. Could she step boldly into her aspirations now? Was she truly prepared to pair her growing confidence with Jack's vulnerabilities? Then came the moment she instinctively reached for her notebook again. The pages had become a universe of ideas, ways to improve patient interactions, incorporate technology, and foster trust. As she wrote, fervor ignited within her, propelling thoughts to spread like wildfire, but amidst her exhilaration, a new worry emerged: could she maintain this momentum? Each word captured could bring them closer, yet the fear of exposing too much, exposing herself, lurked ominously. As she pondered these questions, another phone call from Jack interrupted, sending a surge of both anxious energy and excitement coursing through her. She had initiated a partnership with him, but now it was time to confront the implications of their collaboration. "Emily, I think we should gather our ideas and brainstorm together. What if we host a meeting this week?" he proposed, his tone earnest yet reflective. "It'll help us map out a plan, but I also want to make sure we're both on the same page regarding everything." The softness in his voice reassured her that he wanted to intertwine their hopes, yet a twinge of fear arose. Could they manage the expectations that came with sharing vulnerability and ambition? As her mind raced ahead to preparations, a sudden vision formed: would this collision of ideas lead to innovation or chaos? The boldness of their combined ambitions loomed uncertainly ahead. "Sure," she answered, heart pounding. "Let us make it happen." But the moment hung heavily. Could she reveal her true potential without losing herself in the partnership? The first foundation of their collaboration awaited definition, but she knew the true test lay in whether they could build a collaborative future without succumbing to their pasts. The phone clicked off, but the weight of that simple gesture lingered heavily as anticipation gripped her. She felt the storm of possibilities trap her in a dizzying spiral. Would she prove capable of weathering it together with Jack, or would they crash? Unsure how to navigate the rising tension, she steeled herself for the conversation to come, aware that the decisions made in the hours ahead could define their path altogether. What awaited her during their brainstorming session could change everything, and with her heart racing anew, she realized the time had come for both of them to confront their ambitions and shadows, even if it meant risking it all. As the day of their brainstorming session approached, Emily felt a turbulent mix of anticipation and apprehension. The atmosphere of expectation seemed to seep into every corner of her life. Each interaction felt charged with the weight of potential, yet the echo of vulnerability from their last conversation lingered like a shadow. With her notebook open on the dining table, she meticulously penned ideas, potential strategies, technological applications, therapeutic approaches. Her aspiration to innovate was stacked against a growing awareness of the delicate balance she needed to maintain in her partnership with Jack. This wasn't merely a professional collaboration, it felt like an intertwining of destinies. Every word she wrote mattered, not just for their project, but for revealing parts of herself she had rarely allowed to surface. What if I disappoint him? She thought, a knot tightening in her stomach at the very idea. The fear of honorably dismantling her past while forging a path forward merged with the possibility that she might not be ready for the challenges ahead. By the time Jack arrived for their meeting, she had immersed herself in a sea of concepts, yet doubt still clung like an unwelcome fog. When he stepped into her home, his presence brought both a comforting familiarity and a disquieting awareness. As he looked through her notes, an eagerness sparked behind his brows. Was it excitement or apprehension? "Wow, Emily, this is impressive," he remarked, leafing through her thoughts with genuine enthusiasm. "You've really thought this through." His words washed over her, and the warmth enveloped her for a moment. But then came the reality: the stakes were indeed high, and vulnerability became an ever-present partner. Could their ambitions withstand the exposure of their authentic selves? She studied his face, searching for weaknesses or strengths, questioning if he bore the same simmering doubts she harbored. "Thank you," she managed, the tremor in her voice betraying her. "But I'm worried. What if we can't handle this?" Jack leaned closer, his eyes narrowing slightly in contemplation. "That's part of the journey, isn't it? Navigating the unknown. I think as long as we trust each other, we can face whatever comes our way." She nodded, feeling a flicker of conviction grow against the backdrop of anxiety. "Okay, let us outline our goals." With every idea they bounced back and forth, Emily felt a shift within her. She was excited not just about the project but about discovering her potential as a leader and collaborator. As the session progressed, they solidified plans for patient feedback mechanisms and innovative care strategies. Their ideas seemed to morph from abstract thoughts into a cohesive vision. Everything still felt fragile, but amidst the tumult, something beautiful began to crystallize between them: an alliance grounded in honesty and daring to carve out new identities. Yet, shadows of doubt crept back in. Were they truly ready to take such risks? Would the brewing expectation paralyze or empower them? When Jack casually proposed they explore each other's previous work experiences later, her pulse quickened. "Maybe we can share what has worked for us before or what hasn't," he suggested, seemingly keen to unravel complexities beyond their current project. The move felt crucial, a guardrails moment where they would lay bare their foundations. Could she afford this absence of concealment, revealing more than just their professional personas? Anxiety swirled within her. Would this exchange strengthen their partnership, or escalate the vulnerabilities that already rested delicately on the surface? "Let us do it," she said abruptly, surprising herself as she spoke. The choice brimmed with the recognition of needing to confront not only Jack's past discomfort but her own. As they mapped out a time for their next meeting, Emily could feel the unsettling fragrance of human connection settling in. How would their partnership evolve as they shared parts of themselves, those intricate and tangled threads that defined their past journeys? The clock ticked steadily as they wrapped up, and Emily's heart raced at both the uncertainty and excitement of what lay ahead. Could they possibly confront their shadows and rise together, or was there still a risk that the foundation they built could not hold? As Jack gathered his things and began to head toward the door, Emily felt a surge of determination. The resonance of their vulnerable exchange pressed upon her mind. She chuckled softly, a rush of thought catching her unguarded. But what didn't he know about himself? She left the thought hanging, knowing it needed exploration. This could be either a turning point or a descent. She would find out soon enough. Would both of their discoveries redefine their paths in ways they hadn't yet imagined? Emily sat alone at the dining table after Jack left, the silence of the room amplifying the swirling thoughts in her mind. The ideas they had generated together felt tantalizingly close, yet she could still sense the weight of what lay beneath. What lay beneath both of them? With a deep breath, she flipped through the pages of her notebook again, her earlier enthusiasm now blurring into a nagging sense of doubt. The ink from her pen had transformed her abstract thoughts into concrete words, yet the vulnerability of expressing those ideas in front of Jack felt like an avalanche lurking just out of sight. She poured herself a cup of tea, visualizing how it would feel to soften the edges of her apprehension with its warmth. The steam curled upwards the same way her aspirations seemed to rise and dissipate into the atmosphere, drifting away if not grasped tightly enough. She glanced at the simple clock on the wall, watching each second tick by as her mind wandered to the next meeting. The thought of delving into their past work experiences ignited a storm of emotions. What parts of her history would she dare to share? Would Jack judge the failures hidden within her professional journey? The pulse in her temples throbbed with uncertainty. Yet, could these fears also serve a purpose? Slowly, the realization bubbled to the surface. Opening up about their pasts might not just be a vulnerability, it could be a catalyst for growth. She could choose to present her past not as a catalogue of shortcomings but as a story of resilience and learning. The way forward wasn't solely about the project at hand. It was about forging a genuine partnership that could withstand the potential tremors of judgment or misunderstanding. With renewed clarity, Emily found herself reaching for her pen once more, jotting down snippets of her own journey. The time she struggled with burnout after overcommitting herself, the moment she learned that "no" could serve as a more powerful word than any "yes" she had uttered, each experience crafted a mosaic of her evolution. Writing became an act of reclamation, turning doubt into strategy, fear into empowerment. As the evening wore on, her thoughts transitioned back to Jack. His raw ambition and the way he embraced challenges struck a chord within her. Was his exterior all that he presented, or lay hidden complexities just beneath the surface? The way he had urged her to trust in their partnership lingered like a challenge she was eager to accept. She felt herself drawn toward the task of unraveling his narrative, but how could she do that without submerging herself in his vulnerabilities? Her phone vibrated on the table, interrupting her musings. A text from Jack flashed across the screen, an invitation to meet earlier than scheduled. That tingle of anticipation swirled in her, reinforcing that unfamiliar connection between them. "Let us share our stories, shall we?" She texted him back, willing to dive into deep waters together despite the uncertain currents. The response came quickly, a simple confirmation, "Absolutely. Looking forward to it." Yet, just as she settled back into her thoughts, an unsettling question invaded her mind: what if their exploration of each other's pasts revealed more than just professional backgrounds? What if they unearthed buried truths about their lives that were inherently too painful to confront? Emily shifted in her chair, feeling the weight of the unspoken fears constrict around her chest. The stakes had never felt higher. She was on the verge of bringing not just her ideas into the light, but her very self. As she tucked the notebook away, a deeper resolve began to form within her. She would confront not only her own shadows but weave them into the tapestry of their evolving partnership. Perhaps their journey wasn't merely about professional collaboration but an exploration of what it meant to be fully human together, and, in that moment of clarity, a thought struck her with the force of a stampede. What if discovering each other's demons could pave the way for deeper transformation? The mere idea sparked a fresh wave of determination within Emily. She wasn't merely confronting her own vulnerabilities, she was preparing to plunge into an unknown tapestry alongside Jack. As she took a final sip of her tea, a small smile formed on her lips. The clock continued to tick, but she could almost hear the rhythmic beat of change just around the corner, a change that could reshape their understanding of not only their project but of themselves. The next meeting loomed ahead, and with it, the echoes of their pasts. Would their willingness to unearth each other's vulnerabilities strengthen their bond or expose cracks in the fragile facade they constructed? One thing was certain: their journey was about to reveal truths neither had expected. But behind that simmering anticipation lingered something deeper, a question that crept just beneath her conscious thoughts. What if the most profound discovery wasn't about their past but an awakening of something more, something that could transform not only their partnership but the very essence of themselves? Emily arrived at the cafe early, the soft hum of conversation mingling with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee heightening her sense of anticipation and anxiety. She looked around, taking stock of her surroundings. It was cozy yet bustling, filled with people engaging in varying degrees of intimacy. All the while, she prepared herself to face Jack and the deeper discussions that lay ahead. As the minutes passed, she glanced at her phone, replaying their earlier conversation in her mind like a mantra. It was imperative that she approach this meeting not just as a professional obligation but as a chance for personal connection, an opportunity to excavate their histories and establish a foundation built on trust. When Jack finally walked through the door, her heart raced. He wore a blue shirt that contrasted sharply with his tanned skin, his hair slightly tousled in an appealing way. He scanned the room until his eyes met hers, and a quick smile crossed his face. He approached the table and took a seat across from her, exuding an energy that was both calming and intense. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, his voice steady yet warm. "Of course," Emily replied, her stomach in knots. "I'm really looking forward to this." They exchanged small talk, engaging in safe topics of discussion, but Emily could feel the weight of her true intentions pressing against the comfortable surface banter. The air crackled with potential, a silent agreement that things would change as soon as they began to peel back the layers of their lives. "Let's get real," Jack said suddenly, breaking the delicate rhythm of their conversation. "I think we should share something meaningful about our pasts. You in?" A thrill shot through Emily, both exhilarating and terrifying. This was the moment she had anticipated, but now that the opportunity was here, the choice to dive into her vulnerabilities flashed a sense of dread through her. "Sure," she replied, steeling herself. "I'll go first." Emily shared the story of her burnout, detailing how it felt like she was drowning beneath the weight of her own ambitions. As she spoke, she felt the tension release, the shared air of vulnerability transforming into a bridge instead of a chasm. Jack listened intently, nodding as if each word she spoke resonated somewhere deep within him. "That sounds tough," he responded genuinely. "I've been there too. I used to chase goals at the expense of my health and relationships." Encouraged by his openness, she pressed on, recounting moments of failure and the lessons learned from each setback. A part of her worried she might divulge too much, yet the connection formed in that moment felt remarkable, as if they were encoding their narratives into a sacred trust. Then, Jack leaned forward, revealing more layers, stories of his own struggles with fear of inadequacy and imposter syndrome. His vulnerability evoked something in Emily, a powerful realization that they were both navigating choppy waters in different vessels yet towards the same shores. As they exchanged stories, it was as if the world outside ceased to exist. Their laughter mixed with solemnity, creating a unique symphony of shared fears and triumphs. Emily felt herself change with each story unfolded, a metamorphosis sparked by the realization that her past did not define her. It was merely a stepping stone toward becoming stronger. But just as Jack was about to disclose something that looked pivotal, a familiar anxiety crept back in. Emily sensed unseen ghosts floating just beneath their conversation, the potential backlash of revelation. What if disclosing more about themselves turned into a confrontation of their deepest insecurities? "Wait," she interrupted, the tension rising within her. "Are we ready for this?" An awkward pause hung in the air, their gazes locked. It was an unspoken question between them, a needle threading through the fabric of the moment. She could sense their fragile connection trembling, an unsaid understanding that to dive deeper would bundle them up in threads of vulnerability that could just as easily entangle as unite. Then Jack broke the silence, his voice low but resolute. "What if being afraid is part of the journey? What if we need to confront those fears, not just for ourselves but for each other?" The conviction in his words resonated with her, yet unease lingered, as if an unseen specter hovered between them, an obstacle yet to be faced. Emily felt the room's intensity shift, the stakes rising alongside her pulse. Would they dare to dig deeper into their intertwined pasts, risking the bond they had so carefully crafted? With each second ticking ominously, she locked onto Jack's gaze, a decision crystallizing within her. Their journey had opened the door, but stepping through to confront what lay beyond required courage. "Maybe we should go there," she breathed, her voice steadier than her heart. As Jack's expression turned serious, the weight of her decision settled around them, both thrilling and terrifying. The moment crystallized like glass, an irreversible point of no return. "It's time to face our fears then," he replied, yet as they prepared for this leap, Emily's mind whirled with the implications. What truths lay buried in the uncharted territory they were about to navigate? Would they emerge as allies or expose the fractures within themselves? The evening stretched out before them, the conversation an impending tide ready to crash. The journey to uncover who they were meant to become together had just started. Would it lead them to catharsis or chaos? Emily's heart pounded, her breath catching in her throat. This was the precipice she had feared. It was not just vulnerability she had to confront, it was the raw essence of her identity, shaped by failure and fear. Did she really have the strength to immerse herself in this unknown territory with Jack? In their eyes, she could see the plea for connection, a mutual recognition of the fragility and strength inherent in shared human experiences. A soft hum of conversation from other patrons faded into a distant buzz, the world around them blurring into an indistinct backdrop as if they were in a bubble, isolated together in this pivotal moment. "Tell me about a time when you felt you couldn't go on," Jack urged, his tone gentle yet firm. "The moment that shook you to your core." A wave of memories crashed over Emily. She could feel the heat of embarrassment from her earlier struggles rising to her cheeks. She searched within herself for the moment that truly encapsulated her fears, her late-night breakdowns, the panic that tightened her chest when faced with acceptance. After a moment that felt like hours, she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "There was a project I led last year. I pushed so hard for its success, committing endless hours, sacrificing sleep, and even time with family," she recounted. "When it stumbled, I collapsed. The pressure and hurt from failing in front of my team broke me down. I realized how misplaced my priorities were." Jack's brow furrowed, his empathy palpable. "That must have been devastating," he said quietly. "It's so easy to lose oneself in dreams that feel so palpable but are ultimately out of reach." Clarity washed over Emily as she watched him absorb her story. It was as if the fear she clung to unraveled itself, thread by thread. Each revelation shared was an act of defiance against the shadow of her insecurities. She remembered Jack's admission about his own battles and how showing her scars felt oddly liberating. "Have you ever felt that your past mistakes are like weights dragging you down?" she asked, probing deeper into this collective exploration of fears. Unfurling their fears created a strange space for growth. Jack leaned back slightly, the weight of her words settling. "Constantly," he admitted with a sigh. "There are times I feel I'm still that same scared kid, trying to prove I belong in a world that feels far too big." In this exchange, Emily began to see the outlines of their shared experiences. They were two outlines, sometimes drawn with harsh lines of regret, often softened by reflection and growth. Something in her flickered to life. The doubts, while prevalent, started to feel like echoes of a life once lived, not shackles binding her. As the conversation deepened, each moment of shared vulnerability summoned brave truths within her. She felt empowered by the potential for authenticity. This energy propelled her, illuminating a pathway to explore not just the shadows of her history but also the aspirations she still clung to amid self-doubt. Caught in this raw connection, the weight of her past began to dissipate. Emily had always aimed to be a success, yet ironically realized that her true strength emerged not from flawless victories but from her willingness to share her tribulations. But just as the conversation seemed to elevate them to new heights, a dread-filled thought pierced her mind. What if this moment changed everything? What if revealing too much led to an unraveling of what they had begun to build? "Jack," she interrupted, the tension threading through her voice again. "Is it a mistake to trust so easily? To expose ourselves to someone we hardly know?" His eyes held hers steadily, the room's noises quieted, creating an intimate cocoon. "Trust doesn't come easily, and it's inherently risky. But maybe what we seek relies on our ability to share and learn from each other. It's a dance between vulnerability and courage." With that, the stakes escalated. Emily's resolve peaked, turning back felt stunted. She recognized the pivotal moment here was not just for them to exchange stories but to redefine their paths going forward. "Then let us keep dancing," she said, her voice carrying newfound weight. "I want to understand how you've navigated your vulnerabilities. What are your biggest fears moving forward?" As Jack hesitated, Emily's anticipation thickened the air between them. Would he dive further into the depths of his own insecurities, risking more of his spirit? Would she be ready to catch him if it meant risking her own? "Let us find out," he said, the challenge hanging between them like a pendulum, ready to sway towards chaos or clarity, depending on where they chose to leap next. The air hung heavy with anticipation, a palpable tension swirling around Emily as she waited for Jack's next words. Her heartbeat thudded rhythmically in her ears, echoing her determination but also her uncertainty. Would unveiling their vulnerabilities truly lead them toward the growth she sought, or would it expose the fragile foundations of their emerging connection? Jack took a measured breath, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. "I'm terrified of letting down the people I care about," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every time I put my trust in someone, I wonder if I'm destined to disappoint them. It's as if I'm carrying the weight of their hopes on my shoulders, and I fear I'll stumble." Emily's heart swelled with empathy as she absorbed his confession. It was a feeling she knew all too well, and it struck a chord deep within her. Could they turn these fears into fuel for their ambitions? But what if we could transform that worry into something constructive? Like a lighthouse guiding us through the storm instead of holding us back. A thoughtful expression clouded Jack's features, and she sensed the wheels turning in his mind. This shared dialogue, this delicate unpacking of their fears, felt like a tapestry weaving together each thread of their individuality into a fabric of mutual understanding. Still, a creeping fear lingered. Was she opening herself up enough? Could her own sense of regret and failure truly lead to a breakthrough, or would it forge more barriers? "In a way," Jack continued, the warmth of his tone breaking through her ruminations, "your perspective gives me hope. It's so easy to stand on the edge of our emotions, worrying about the plunge. What if we stepped back and viewed it all as a process? An opportunity for growth rather than a pit of despair?" The notion sparked something inside her. It ignited a latent desire to embrace uncertainty, to challenge her comfort zone. Picturing herself as a vibrant participant in a never-ending cycle of development, Emily yearned to leave behind the echoes that haunted her past. Each admission drew her closer to understanding both herself and Jack. "Jack," she said, her voice gaining steadiness, "what if this dance is also about empowerment? Maybe our mistakes don't define our futures, they can inform them instead." Emily watched his expression shift as he contemplated her words. The hint of a smile danced at the corners of his lips, a sign that perhaps she had struck a chord. "I think you're uncovering something vital," Jack replied, leaning forward, his eyes luminous with possibility. "Perhaps it's time we both stopped waiting approval from the versions of ourselves that once failed. What if we extended that grace to each other? It could be the beginning of something incredible." As he spoke, Emily's mind raced with the prospect of what this new understanding could bring. A partnership forged not just in shared fears but also in shared aspirations felt electrifying. Yet, as Jack's gaze intensified, Emily felt the weight of unprocessed emotions grip her. Would this leap into mutual support push her past the precipice of her past disappointments? The fear that had accompanied her through each revelation resurfaced, a whispered reminder of her hesitations. What if now, just as she felt ready to forgive herself, something unexpected shattered their connection? With a quick exhale, she pressed on. "We have to establish boundaries while leaning into this trust. It's unnerving, knowing there's still so much left unexpressed, but isn't that the point of this journey?" A moment of silence stretched between them, charged with the raw energy of vulnerability and the flickering flame of mutual respect. Jack contemplated her thoughts, visibly moved yet troubled. "We can't leap blind into a partnership. We need to acknowledge where our boundaries lie. Otherwise, we risk losing ourselves again." Emily nodded, understanding the profound truth in his words. This wasn't merely a quest for emotional connection, it was also a test of their steadfastness. "Let's make a pact," she offered, her heart racing with anticipation. "To not just trust without barriers but to explore our growth with respect for both our journeys." Jack's eyes glistened with sincerity, but Emily realized this commitment came with its own set of challenges. What would that exploration demand from them? As he extended his hand, she grasped it with conviction. With that gesture, they sealed an unspoken agreement to tread carefully yet boldly into the unknown. Together, they were poised at the edge of transformation, ready to unearth latent strengths while embracing their vulnerabilities, but uncertainty still loomed overhead. Their pact, while empowering, left Emily pondering the depths of trust and fear. What revelations awaited them on this path forward? And as the night wore on, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that their next foray might reveal truths neither was prepared to face. Let us discover what's next, she said, feeling a mix of excitement and terror course through her. As Jack nodded, the atmosphere shifted, pregnant with the anticipation of the unknown, ready to challenge the very tenets they were beginning to embrace. What if their journey into vulnerability became a discovery not just of each other, but of who they truly were apart from the reflections of their pasts? Emily stood in her kitchen again, but the weight of the previous long shift no longer bore down on her shoulders like a crushing load. The sunlight streaming through the window filled the room with clarity, illuminating every corner and highlighting the transformation blooming within her heart. The conversations with Jack had unfurled a new perspective, one wherein her past obstacles morphed into opportunities for growth. She glanced at the open notebook on the table, its pages filled with ideas that now felt like seeds ready to take root. Today is the day, she whispered to herself, the familiar phrase a mantra echoing in her mind. She had chosen to take the leap, now, she was ready to soar. Jack had been her bridge to a life beyond mere survival. Their last meeting had unearthed more than just shared vulnerabilities, it had crystallized a partnership grounded in mutual respect and ambition. No longer was she just a nurse, she was an innovator, a mother determined to change her circumstances, and a believer in possibilities. They had spent the past week strategizing and mapping out their ideas, transforming Emily's thoughts into actionable concepts. Each brainstorming session deepened their connection, revealing layers of potential not just for their professional endeavors but for their individual selves as well. Jack's entrepreneurial spirit combined with her insights on patient care promised a shift in the paradigm of healthcare, yet, the excitement buzzed with tension. Today, they would present their first structured proposal to a potential investor who had shown interest in hearing about their emerging project. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. With a deep breath, she picked up the phone, dialing Jack's number. He answered almost immediately, his voice filled with the same blend of enthusiasm and nerves that coursed through her. "You ready?" he asked. "More than ready," she replied, injecting confidence into her tone even as butterflies danced in her stomach. This was her moment not just for herself but for Sam, too. A chance to show her son that dreams didn't solely belong to those who had everything handed to them on a silver platter. As they gathered at the established meeting spot, Emily felt herself begin to oscillate between doubt and determination. Jack's arrival steadied her heart. He walked in with his customary warmth, their eyes meeting in an unspoken understanding that today was pivotal. They opened their presentation with clarity, Emily presenting the insights gleaned from her nursing experience, painting a vivid picture of both the pitfalls in the current system and the unique solutions they envisioned. Jack built upon her foundation, articulating the business model with precision and zeal. Together, they conveyed not merely a potential partnership but a vision for change that resonated beyond the sterile walls of healthcare. As they concluded, the potential investor leaned back, pausing to absorb their proposal. Emily held her breath, waiting for feedback. This was a test, a moment of unveiling not just the project but everything she had fought to overcome. Finally, he nodded, his expression thoughtful. "This is compelling," he admitted. "A blend of real-world understanding with a business acumen that's refreshingly straightforward. I see the potential for impact and I want in." The word sent a wave of relief and triumph cascading through Emily. They done it. They transformed their aspirations into tangible action. Afterward, as they stood outside, the world feeling brighter than it had in a long time, she turned to Jack. "We actually did this," she said, her voice bubbling with disbelief and excitement. "We turned our dreams into reality." Jack grinned, his eyes lighting up. "You proved that your experience is invaluable. This is just the beginning, Emily." In that moment, she realized it wasn't just validation, it was empowerment. The journey had evolved their identities, so each moment they spent together forged them into something greater than they had been alone. Emily felt an undeniable pride swell. Within her, she was no longer a woman living in the shadows of fear and doubt, but a visionary ready to embrace the future. As she drove home, Sam's laughter rang in her ears, mingling with the commitment to create a life where his mother could proudly show him how to chase dreams, fight demons, and celebrate victories. She would demonstrate resilience, proof that life's challenges could be reshaped into opportunities for transformation. Standing at her kitchen counter once more with Sam at the drawing table, Emily resolved to keep nurturing the ember that burned within her. Together, they would chase every dream, leaving behind the weight of regrets, replacing them with strength, courage, and the promise of an exciting future filled with possibility. Now was her time, and now, you have the opportunity to seize the moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you to transform your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these compelling narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily's journey and her future possibilities. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to inspire someone else today. True fans of personal overcoming stories know the power of supporting those journeys, so let us do this together.